It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Thus began the story in the late 18th century in both London and Paris, when Europe was facing profound changes and political and social upheaval. In England, Mr. Jarvis Lorry, an employee of Tellson's Bank, lives a routine and organized life. One day he receives a message asking him to travel to France on a special mission concerning an old client. The mission is to help Lucy Manette, a beautiful young woman living in England, to reunite with her father, Dr. Alexander Manette, who was believed to have died years ago but was actually imprisoned in the Bastille. Upon their arrival in France, they discover that Dr. Friar Manette is in a state of mental confusion, locked in a small room where he spends his time making shoes, a craft he learned during his imprisonment to avoid madness. Lucy, with her tenderness and patience, helps her father gradually regain his sanity, and he is transported to England to begin a new life with her. Years pass, and the story begins to branch into different paths. In Paris, the French Revolution ignites and the monarchy collapses. Amidst the public anger and political conflicts, the lower class begins to revolt against the nobles, leading to bloody and painful scenes. At the same time, Charles Darnay, a young French nobleman, decides to renounce his family's cruel legacy and travel to England, where he meets Lucy and falls in love with her. In London, the character of Sidney Carton, a clever and indifferent lawyer, appears, seemingly lost in his life. Despite his chaotic exterior, Sidney harbors a deep, silent love for Lucy. When Lucy marries Charles, Carton decides to be a lifelong friend and supporter of their family, despite his deep inner sadness. As events in France escalate, Charles returns to Paris to rescue the family's old servant, who has been imprisoned by the revolutionaries. However, he is arrested upon arrival and accused of treason because of his noble family ties. He is imprisoned and faces trial, where his fate seems sealed. In this critical moment, Sidney Carton decides to sacrifice his life to save Charles. Due to his striking resemblance to Charles, Carton is able to switch places with him in prison without anyone noticing. While Charles is smuggled out of prison and returns to his family, Sidney Carton faces his fate with courage and calm. In his final moments, he finds inner peace and reflects on the value of sacrifice and his unconditional love for Lucy. His last words reflect his understanding of the meaning of his actions. "It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known." Lucy and her family live in peace in England, but they always carry the memory of Carton and his noble sacrifice. The novel ends on a note of hope, showing that even in the darkest times, humanity and nobility can flourish. Thus, the tale of the two cities becomes a testament to the power of love and sacrifice to overcome hatred and destruction. After the Darnay family is smuggled out of France, the heroic sacrifice of Sidney Carton remains etched in their hearts, especially Lucy and her little daughter, who was named after her mother. Sidney Carton had lived his life without a clear purpose, broken under the weight of the feeling of failure, but he ended his life with the greatest act a human could achieve, sacrificing himself for others. His decision was brave and noble, representing the deepest meanings of unconditional love. In France, the revolution continues to tighten its grip. The guillotine, a symbol of the bloody revolution, still reaps lives indiscriminately. Those who called for liberty and equality sometimes find themselves victims of the same cruel system they created. Mademoiselle Defarge, the wife of the revolutionary shoemaker Ernest Defarge, plays a central role in hunting and discrediting the nobles, but her cruelty reflects the dark transformation that has infected the revolutionary people. She was seeking revenge for her family, who had suffered great injustice, but her blind desire for revenge made her a symbol of distorted justice that knew no mercy. In a poignant scene, Carton's sacrifice has a profound effect not only on the lives of Darnay and Lucy, but on history as a whole. His heroic act makes readers question the meaning of life and human values that can transcend selfishness. Carton was a broken and isolated man, but his sincere and selfless love for Lucy ultimately led him to find his redemption. In England, The family that was saved by their father's life due to Carton's sacrifice lives in relative peace. Dr. Manette, who endured many years of suffering in the Bastille, finds himself in a position where he can witness the happiness he has restored to his family. Despite his painful past, he finds hope in the future, in his little granddaughter who carries the name Lucy. As the family lives their lives, they always remember Carton's final words, which became a motto for love and courage. "It is the best thing I have ever done in my life." The novel speaks about the fluctuations of fate and the incredible strength of humanity in the darkest circumstances. The Tale of Two Cities presents a complex mix of suffering, love, sacrifice, and justice. It is a testament to the ability of the human spirit to overcome the worst trials and choose self-sacrifice for others. Despite the salvation achieved by the Darnay family due to Sidney Carton's sacrifice, life was not free from challenges. In England, Charles and Lucy find a safe haven, but they remain haunted by the bitter memories of their time in France, where their lives were in constant danger. Over time, Charles instills in his young daughter the values he learned from his experience in the French Revolution, including the importance of sacrifice for others and the courage to confront injustice. Dr. Manette, who suffered from years of imprisonment, finds comfort in being part of his daughter's and granddaughter's lives. However, the effects of his long imprisonment still emerge at times when he becomes lost in his memories of the Bastille. Despite this, the presence of his family around him gives him the inner peace he had missed for many years. Gradually, Dr. Manette gains new strength, not only as a father and grandfather, but as a man who has overcome his suffering to become a symbol of endurance. On the other hand, in France, the revolution grows more violent and ruthless. The guillotine, which was initially a symbol of justice, becomes an instrument of terror and revenge. Even the most enthusiastic revolutionaries like Ernest Defarge begin to question whether the path of violence they have chosen is the right one to achieve liberty and equality. His wife, Madame Defarge, who was a symbol of revenge, meets a tragic end as her fanaticism leads to her downfall. This fall is a symbol of a warning against the dangers of the blindness that revenge may cause. Meanwhile, Sidney Carton's last words become a lasting legacy for the Darnay family and future generations. His memory is immortalized as a symbol of sacrifice, and his story is passed down to grandchildren who never witnessed those events themselves. Little Lucy, who bears her mother's name, grows up to become a strong woman, carrying in her heart a deep love for justice and peace. She always remembers Carton's words and finds inspiration in them throughout her life. The novel concludes on a sad but hopeful note. It serves as a reminder that life is full of contradictions: love and hatred, sacrifice and selfishness, justice and revenge. Sidney Carton's story remains an eternal lesson about the power of the human spirit in the face of injustice and its ability to choose good even in the darkest of circumstances. The novel is not only a story about the French Revolution, but also a profound exploration of the human soul, making it one of the greatest literary works in history.